Platemark is a podcast about prints and the printmaking ecosystem. In every episode, we'll hear from people who occupy various roles in that ecosystem. I'm your host, Anne Schaefer. I work to promote prints and printmaking through this podcast, organizing fine art print fairs, and also organizing exhibitions. The goal of the pod is to demystify the world of prints and printmaking, which can be technically challenging, and to demonstrate the range of opportunities to work in this charming corner of the art world. This is a show that takes you behind the scenes to expose the generous, collaborative, and creative people who work to better the world one print at a time. Today my guest is Amé Bell, who is the director of David Krut Projects in Johannesburg, South Africa. We talk about curating the South African Pavilion for the Venice Biennale in 2022. We talk about organizing exhibitions across South Africa. It sounds like David Krut Projects does a whole lot to support the ecosystem there. We talk about podcasting. Amé and her friend Elise have a podcast called the Chopped Liver Appreciation Society. So we talk about podcasting as well and how useful that can be for connecting people within the ecosystem. Images that Amé and I talk about are over in the show notes at platemarkpodcast.com. Over there is also the support and donate button. You can help me keep the lights on. All right, let's get rolling. Amé, it's lovely to see you. Thank you so much for coming on Platemark.
Well, thanks for having me. It's such a pleasure, and I'm very excited because I'm a big fan of your Platemark podcast.
Thank you. Before we do anything else, will you introduce yourself for everybody?
Of course, yeah. So I'm Amé Bell, and I am an art historian by education, but I've been working at David Krut for 12 years this year, and I'm the director of the company, and David Krut Projects is an organization that specializes in making prints. We've got a workshop at our studio at Arts on Main in Johannesburg, and a gallery and a bookstore. And what I do is I facilitate all the activities. I find artists, I conceptualize projects, I distribute those projects over various locations in Johannesburg, New York, and wherever else we need to do a project. But yeah, I've just completed my PhD, waiting for my results, which should come through hopefully in the next month. And yeah, I just love art. I love printmaking. Huge fan of art history as well. So that is me basically in a nutshell.
But you make art too, I see.
I do make art. I forgot about that. Yeah. So I am also an artist and a printmaker myself. And these things I actually do as a research venture, one can say. I don't really aspire to be a gallery artist. But since I've worked at David Krut, I've dabbled in all areas as a research. I mean, like a true art historian would. I do field research through my art making practice to kind of see what artists go through, what printmakers go through, why things are so difficult, why they become easier. And yeah, so as an artist, I'm like an artist historian. I don't know if that exists or has existed or something must be, but my artistic practice is really a part of art history research.
I know a lot of curators anyway that are artists also. I'm not sure about the academic scholar types, but yeah, no, I think it is. I mean, it goes hand in hand, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes total sense. Like when I, as a curator, many of us had never even touched a copper plate. And, you can recognize things, but to not understand what the artist goes through, I think is sort of a mistake. So I applaud you on that end.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's quite a thing to put yourself in their shoes. And I must say, it's been incredibly rewarding working with artists, having a bit of insight into where they're at. When you're doing projects, when you're promoting projects, when you're displaying projects, they put so much of themselves into their work. And it's, for me, like one of the most difficult professions that you could choose for yourself is to be an artist and, persist with that. So I just love working with artists and, knowing everything about them. So maybe a little bit creepy putting myself in their shoes. But yeah, no, I love artists. I love that whole philosophy of being an artist and the practice.
I feel like David Krut's model is unusual. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but he kind of does everything. He's a support system to the artist community, and I think is really helping people. I mean, it's so wide ranging, and I think it's a model that people should know about and pay attention to and strive for.
Yeah, I mean, David is. Do you want me to go on and say a little bit about David?
Please do.
David Krut. But yeah, no, David is so extraordinary, and what he does is so kind of offbeat, but also so in line with what's happening. I mean, David for me is, and as I said, I've been here quite a number of years. He's quite a trendsetter for me in a very humble and non-assuming way. But in South Africa, it's very difficult to meet somebody working in the arts who didn't at least spend 1 week at David Krut working here. Everybody you meet, they would say, oh yeah, I worked at David Krut before I went to Goodman, or before I went here, or before I went there. I mean, master printer Gillian Ross, who was in our studio for 17 years, they basically built this thing together, and she was trained in our studio with printers that David knew. So he is such an extraordinary individual and how he set up his company. I mean, in terms of the structure of our company, I think we're completely unique in the sense that, we're a print workshop, but we have a very active, committed gallery program, and we publish books, and we disseminate works. We kind of in South Africa develop artists' careers, work with them over a long period of time. As we know, David's worked with William Kentridge for over 30 years, but there are many other artists that he's worked with for equal amounts of time. Deborah Bell, Diane Victor, and he has such a passion for emerging artists as well. So he's got quite an eye for spotting new talent, where I feel a lot of galleries around us are kind of showing artists that David had a little something for before. He would invite them into the workshop, and they'd come, we'd maybe do a project with them for a year, and now the next thing they're showing with bigger galleries, because he doesn't really represent artists, but he supports them long-term throughout their careers, and not just artists, practitioners as well. As I said, everybody working in the arts, not everybody, but most people you'll meet in South Africa, at least working in the arts, have learned how to work in the arts from David Krut. They've worked in a bookstore, they've run an exhibition, they've published a book. He teaches about small businesses. We learn about packing. We do everything ourselves here, including photography, video work, our media, everything. And people learn how to do that within this organization. And they really have to sink or swim. So I think David is so unique. And because he's so flexible, people that come out of here really come out equipped, because they have to make things happen, and he allows us to have a lot of freedom in how we figure it out. So David's also pretty unique in that way. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of David, as you can hear. But yeah, no, it's completely, our model is so special, and it's, allows us to collaborate wholly throughout all the areas of our organization, which is just so lovely.
Well, and the New York arm is a whole other ball of wax. I mean, it's astonishing to me that you can be in both places. And I mean, I just am kind of in awe, really.
You mean as the company?
Well, yeah. I mean, it must take a huge team or some really superhuman people. It feels like there's really no better way to bring South African art and artists to the wider global thing than in New York, right? Of course, that's where you want to be. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I just feel like the shows are always really interesting, and the artists I love Diane Victor. I love her work. And it's just, I don't know. It seems kind of like Shangri-La is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Look, I mean, you'd be quite surprised. We're a big team, but we're not actually a big team, because in the New York space, we've always had 2 people running that space. It kind of works well as a pair. And then on this side, we've got a number of people on the Johannesburg side that work very well with the New York team. All of the works that we show, or most of the works that we show, come from our workshop, which is produced here. The shows are effectively curated from here between us and the team, and COVID made that a lot easier, because before it's like, time zones, whatever. Now we're so used to working online and chatting, so it becomes a lot easier. But we're a small team doing a lot of different things. And the New York space for us is such an important launch pad for artists, and for us to be testing the market outside of South Africa in various ways. So in Johannesburg, for example, a lot of the artists growing up in the city have never been to a museum. They've never seen a Rembrandt. They've never seen anything. We don't have international works coming here. There's a handful of shows that I could name on my one hand where we've had Picasso's or where we've had one Frida Kahlo or something coming through to Johannesburg where you can see the works. Our major museum, the Johannesburg Art Gallery, is in ruins, which they're trying to fix and uplift again, but there's literally nowhere for young artists to be seeing or engaging with work in an international level. So to even bring these artists to New York and have their works be read in context of all these other things that are going on around them is so valuable for the artists, not necessarily from a sales perspective, because you would want to sell their work in the New York space, but what it does for them is give them feedback that they otherwise wouldn't have. I mean, a parallel with that would be like an artist showing at an international biennale where many international visitors go and see the work and give you feedback and you can see how they respond to it, but not everyone has the opportunity to do that. So David's ability to be showing these works in New York give the artist so much feedback, and at the same time it supports the infrastructure of the things working together, supports it all. Like we supported through the sale of really Williams' work in our New York gallery or other international artists that we show there, but that enables us to give these artists a platform in New York, which they would otherwise never have. And I can tell you from a South African perspective, it's really difficult to have a space there. I mean, I'm sure it's for anybody difficult to be paying rent in New York, but with our currency being so bad, it's almost impossible to be having a space in New York. So it's hugely valuable for artists to just getting the exposure and the feedback from the audience as they come through the space.
I agree with you. Now, we're going to turn from David's enterprise for 2 seconds because you mentioned the Biennale, and you, in fact, directed the South African Pavilion in 2022. A, how in the world did you get that job? And B, how did it go?
How I got that job is quite a mystery. I got invited by one of the artists that was part of the pavilion. They invited me on board with this project. It works very differently in South Africa. I think, each country has their own method of doing it, but in our country, you have to submit a bid. And I got invited by an artist and some people that were putting together the bid to join their team and to curate. And to be honest, I thought they were inviting me to basically come sweep the floor. I'm joking. But, to not do what they wanted, they said, please, can you come over? We want to talk to you about the Biennale. And I phoned David and I said, cool. David, I've got this call, just so that it's happening. I'm going to go to this meeting. And he's like, cool, not thinking much about it. And then I went to the meeting and they were like, would you curate this project for us? And I was like, okay, cool, I'll do it. Because what are you going to say? So I basically got it by invitation. But I think it's also off the back of work that I've done for this artist over a period of time. I'd obviously, in their minds, have done good work for them, I hope. And that's why they invited me. So it's interesting how the community is so valuable. And for me, everything you do has value. If it's a small project, a small part that you can play in, something that you're doing, you never know where that's going to go. So effectively, that's, for me, it happened so organically. How I got that position, and it was life-changing. It was a life-altering experience. And to be honest, I always joked with my friends, like, which one of us would be the curator for the Venice Biennale.
You're kidding.
It was not in my mind ever going to be me. I've got much more accomplished colleagues that in my mind, would be there sooner. But it happened to me, and I was so grateful. And it went really well, I thought. We did a good job with the resources that we had. And, in a way, it can't be separated from my work at David Krut, because everything I've learned here equipped me to be doing that project on my own. I'm skilled in logistics. I've worked international fairs. I know how it works. I know what needs to be done. So at that point in time, I had been working with David for 8 years and in other organizations. So I just had the skills to be able to do it, thank goodness. And I thought it went really well. I was very happy with what we did. We carried on working with one of the artists. We've always worked with Roger Ballin, but Pumlani Ntuli is one of the artists we now work with in our workshop. And I was just so happy that we could work with him as part of the David Krut organization going forward, because that project to me was really so beautiful, and we got good reviews. I think you always get mixed reviews at a Biennale, but for me it was great. And we had a good time, and we had a beautiful pavilion from, what we put together. I really loved it.
True confessions, I've never been to the Biennale. So when people talk about all these, I have a hard time imagining how you navigate from one to the other. Like, they must be all over the city.
Yes, so there's two main areas. There's the Arsenale, where our pavilion is. So it's a rented space. You have like a lease for 20 years, or you could own your space, like in the Giardini, the US, I think, and Germany and whoever else, they own their spaces. They have those spaces. So those are the two main locations. And then there are collateral events all over the city. So you would have national pavilions off-site, outside of these locations. And it is so fun going everywhere, and you have to find on these little bridges, go over this bridge and through this passageway, you have to go find this pavilion. And it's, Venice is actually so perfect for that. But, to me, it was also quite an isolated place, because for me, who goes there? Who goes and visits the Venice Biennale? You yourself have not even been there, and you should go, because it's such a treat, I think, for people who love art and who want to engage with things at a global scale, seeing all artists from the world coming together and having a conversation through their work about what's relevant in their own countries. But it's like the most fun. Might I add, missioning, if you don't have a pavilion that you have to be in, I think you'll have a lot more fun in terms of exploring the city. But, it's so charming, and it's amazing. It's an amazing experience. Everybody should go once if they can, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
And they always have amazing art shows there. I mean, there's always residencies going on. There's always artists going there. It amazes me. It's basically just an art city of people. It's incredible. Yeah. It's incredible.
So you must have been pregnant when you were working on the Biennale.
No, I was not.
Not yet?
My son was 1 year old.
Oh, God.
When I did the Biennale, which was terrifying. But I'm so committed to the arts and I must say, I've got so much support from my family that I am able to do these things. And, visit New York as well. The idea is that I would go twice a year, and I've got so much support from my family that I'm able to do that. But my son was 1 at the time. And it was just one of those things that was, you can't say no to it.
Right.
You have to make it work. So you don't know what you're doing, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but you can't say no. You have to make it work. So it was literally a situation like that. So, yeah.
Nice. Have things come from have people been in touch and said, I saw your work with the Biennale and I'd like to, contract you for another project? Or somebody tried to poach you from David?
Rather not say.
I know, right?
Look, I think from that, I did get a lot of, what is the word, requests for people wanting me to help them with projects. And I've subsequently helped and communicated a lot about the Biennale to other people who are trying to exhibit there, or, actually kind of been sharing knowledge, because here as well, Brendan Copestake, he was one of the very proficient organizers of the Biennale, worked on many things before, and he's the one kind of who holds the information on that, unless you do it, and then you have equity in that. So, it's quite tough, because I think it's unusual that I would have worked on the Biennale, but been so committed to David Krut. And I think people know how committed I am to this place. I've been very open about that. I've been on, radio interviews or people asking me about, what's next for you? And I'm like, developing this organization with David, carrying on with it. So I think I've made my intentions very clear on that. But definitely from a sharing perspective, I've communicated a lot about what happens there and how it works. And then also I've had a lot of artists asking me to help them with their planning and their careers and what do they do and where do they show. And I basically function as a connector for artists who want to do different things. And I think a little bit of the David Krut legacy has rubbed off on me in the sense of continuity. Like, I'm not that interested almost in like pursuing every next best thing that's not in touch with what I'm doing now. Like our relationship with Pumlani is quite important to me, and that's for me connected to the Biennale. So, us working with him in print and showing his work, we've showed it at the Brooklyn Print Fair. He's now one of the artists we're showing at the 154 Art Fair. I want to keep that going with him. And for me, that is quite a special relationship that's come out of that project for me. So, different things. I don't function as an independent curator, but if the projects would come up, I would always, see what comes from it.
Right. This is all making me think about you and your podcast, which is sitting a little dormant at the moment, but probably will be back. But it's the Chopped Liver Appreciation Society. And when I started listening to it, I was like, we are so in line with trying to share how many different ways people can be involved in the creative process and world that's not directly creative. And I so appreciated that about what you guys were trying to do. But tell us about the podcast.
Yeah, so this podcast it was a COVID project, started as a COVID project with my very good friend and colleague, Elise de Beer, who also worked at David Krut. That's how we met. And we, being really with a background in galleries, you're the background person, and you're not, it really comes from an area where sometimes you feel underappreciated. Your skills, your expertise as an organizer is not always in the forefront. And I must admit, for me, like, I quite like that. I like working in the background. But we started thinking about, the writers that work with us, or, like the one artist we interviewed was a tattoo artist, and just how much skill and training and passion goes into these different things. And when we started interviewing our guests, we were like so mind blown by the level of niche or expertise or how they think about things, and how much we were learning about ourselves, I guess, and the things that we were interested in. And I think coming also from a background, Elise came from a background where her parents were also very supportive, me as well, although my parents did say to me, what are you going to do with this art history degree? And I was like, we'll see, I guess. and now they can be like, cool, good job, you've made something of your life. But I think it's also come from that, where we wanted to have a conversation with people about pursuing whatever their passion was and making a career out of it, And I think in different industries, you have to sometimes supplement, also, like I was saying, my husband being a musician, there's only, you want a certain life, or you have, you can do that, but you maybe have to do other things with that as well. But it doesn't mean it has to be secondary to what you do that in your life that has meaning. So the podcast is really rooted in that, in trying to help people understand that creative work is still work, and it's still valuable work. That's where we were going with that. The name is kind of more cheeky, because we would always tease and say, what are we, Chopped Liver? Right. We've just pulled this show together, or we've just made this all happen. But we're not going to be on the notice board, which we were fine with. But it came from that joke of putting in the effort, and we just wanted to celebrate people who did the same in different industries, or who are backline people who we wanted people to learn more about, and we wanted to learn more about them. So we definitely want to revive the podcast. And I think the other thing is we also wanted to talk about careers in the arts, as both as practicing artists. My friend Elise now lives in Ireland, and she has a very different environment from us. Their artists get public funding. She's had multiple solo shows, where in South Africa, it's very commercially driven, especially in Johannesburg. You have to make to sell. And I think that when we restart the podcast, I would actually like to bring the two areas together, especially because I'm also a little bit more clued up on how it's working in New York, just to give artists a bit of insight about how you can work differently. And you need to kind of unpack your goals and see what you make, where you can make it, how you can do it. And we'll be comparing notes, intercontinentally or cross-continentally about how these things work. So I think I'd love to pick up the podcast on that front, just to compare notes.
David Krut's World, they have a podcast also. Are you involved in that?
Yes. So Elise and I also launched that podcast prior to our podcast. And that really came, I must say, from my first trip to New York. At that point, I wasn't listening to a lot of podcasts, but I was listening to Serial at that time, and I loved Right, of course. And and I was so addicted to that and listened to it so much on the train, and, came back and spoke to her. She was in Cape Town at the time running our Cape Town space. And I was like, we should start a podcast. And, this is so cool. And you learn so much. And then we started our own podcast at David Krut. And I also realized people wanted to hear from the artists. I mean, that's the thing. And I realized that, it's like, that was what was interesting to me about the podcast. And we brought it together. She and another woman, Gabby, from the gallery space there, they developed all the technical requirements of the podcast, what it would be. And they really did the first podcast. But we were so interested to hear from artists directly, which at that time, very few people in South Africa, and still, run a podcast. Now you have a few others. You have the Latitudes podcast, you have Art Angle, you have different things. Unframed podcast is the one that we also love. But at that time, no one was really doing that. So, and we just loved it. So we were like, cool, let's do this. And we want to hear from the artists and hear from them directly. And we got such a good response and found that it was a valuable resource, like exhibition resource, kind of like a museum thing, that people could just bring them a bit closer to the work, especially in an area where our arts education and visual literacy is still developing very much so in South Africa. We wanted people to hear what it was about for artists. And that's really how that came about.
Does it act like a sales tool, a tool in your toolbox?
I wouldn't say necessarily a sales tool, but it's a lovely supplement for people who have expressed interest in work and who want to know more about the work that they have purchased. Because I think, often work speaks for themselves. You can't say any words or read any words that will make people love a work more than they respond to it visually, I think. But it is a lovely way to bring them in depth into what an artist practice is about. So indirectly, more supplementary tool, I would say, for us.
Knowing who your audience is in the podcast world is so hard. Like, I assumed that I would have more of one kind of listener than I do, I think. I think in the end, I'm really making the pod for the print maker type peoples, the people who are involved in the direct, much more so than collectors. Although, tell me if I'm wrong, people. But it does change how you go after certain kinds of people for your guest or even the line of questioning. Because, if I'm trying to attract a general audience and I have to stop and explain every term that there's a secret language, right? The feedback I've gotten is that people are really intrigued to hear about how artists think about their work and what their motivations are, and how, and even the process of, as we've been talking, like, how do you get to that gallery, or how do you get to that exhibition or something? So that's kind of where I am. Like, I'm just trying to help people understand that we're all just people with cool jobs, and that print people in general are just super generous, as you are, you're a connector. I feel like I'm a connector, and hoping that we can make things happen for people. Nothing gives me greater joy, really.
Absolutely. No, and I think that it's, the podcast realm, it's such a great way to be doing that, because people can do it while they're doing other things. You don't have to sit and concentrate on this one thing. It can just be a part of your life naturally. But I think because the arts are so exclusive, or traditionally, so closed off, I don't know if you've read Bianca Bosca's book, Get the Picture. She's a journalist, and she reports about taking a job at a gallery in New York and how she doesn't dress the right way and how she doesn't talk the right way. And, even writing a press release has to have certain words and certain things. And I think, in a way, unpacking that, talking about what the art world is about in all its different facets, helps us broaden the audience. And there is a need, certainly, to be bringing people that either are interested but not necessarily integrated like we are with an arts background or an arts education, to bring them into that conversation. And all they need to know is a little bit about how it works, or, how people have succeeded in different realms, or, what impact you've made in whatever respect, as a connector or whatever. So I think that that's where these podcasts are great, because anybody can stumble upon it. You don't have to go to a gallery or have to go to a fair to be learning about these things. You could just listen to your podcast and learn so much about, where we at in the art world. And, they become a part of that. And I think people just often don't know where to start. And a podcast is a great way to secretly, without feeling silly, become a part of that.
Right. Yeah, I think it's part of my main mission to demystify the art world a little bit and help people break through if they're interested in breaking through and don't feel they have or can. And the print corner of the art world is the perfect place to start, because we're all just like, come on in. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's, I think the podcast is a good tool in that way. Do you have a plan for restarting, or is it just kind of after your daughter reaches age 2.5 or so?
No, so from my side, I've been on a bit of a hiatus with the studying, because I can only do so much as one person. But I would love to start it up quite soon. I mean, Elise was in South Africa just a few weeks ago, and we did discuss it. She's pretty busy with her shows and so on. And, when we first started the podcast, she was freelancing, so did a lot of the organizing for us and all of that. And I think with me having less on my plate, I could take over that role in doing the organizing. So I think we should, look into it in the next, even the next half of this year. We've got so much that we want to talk about. And I think that we've learned since we took a break, because, the postgrad studies can take quite a while. It doesn't take me that long, but and just, we want to start it up quite soon. I would love to start it up quite soon. And it may take a different format where we may not even be interviewing people together. Like, we could just be doing individual things and then come together at some point. I also really loved the little book reviews that we were doing, because we had publishers send us things and we would be giving them away as on our podcast to people who are interested in navigating the art world or doing different things. So it's just such a lovely way to be connecting with people. I'd love to start it up quite soon, in the next few months, I would say.
Yeah, as you know, it's a lot of work, but it's very soul satisfying, I would say, to share stuff with the world. I don't know. I think it's a good platform, I think, for you and me. But Amé, what did you write your dissertation on for your PhD?
So my dissertation was on independent artists and basically their practices in Johannesburg, how they use the digital space to circumvent traditional gallery structures, because that's something that's been going on quite a bit in Joburg. Artists are working more independently. They don't want to be represented by galleries. So I was kind of talking about the strategies that they use to not subscribe to the traditional models of representation and how that works.
The artists are circumventing the gallery system because they are having trouble getting in, or it's taking too much of a cut, or what's their reasoning?
So I think there are various reasons. Some artists haven't had good experiences with galleries. Other artists, I think with COVID was a huge catalyst for artists having a mind shift, in the sense that they saw what galleries were doing online and thought, hey, I could do that online. I could put up my catalogs out. I could put up a digital show. I could do all these things. So it caused a mind shift in terms of what they could be doing. It also, in a way, because everybody went online, they had more access. There was more sharing. There was more access to what was going on in the art world, because everybody was online. And the aftermath of that, I think, is that artists already sold. they already became known. They already had some kind of level of, what is the word, like they already had like a persona in the arts, and they could start having more autonomy over their practices. There's some artists that I interviewed that were offered shows by big galleries or representation. They've also offered shows with the intention to represent. They did the shows, the gallery said, cool, we can represent you. And they said, I think I'll wait. And, so that was to me fascinating. It was fascinating that artists would say to big galleries like Goodman Gallery, I'm okay for now, but, let's see where it goes. So there are different reasons that's happened. But I've also, through the research process, I kind of, you highlight the respect or the element, the differentiation between what galleries are able to offer in terms of what public platforms like Instagram and so on are able to offer an artist. It's kind of, I don't want to say like a fast fix for an artist to have a career in the arts, but it's really like success in the public opinion, where there's a certain level of consecration, obviously, that comes with gallery representation, but artists are working in between those two arenas. And it was quite fascinating to me how, the strategies, what they're doing, how they're making their decisions, and what impact it has on the art world. Because one thing, for example, that happened is during COVID, a lot of the mid-tier galleries in Johannesburg specifically closed because artists were selling their work that were mid-level through Instagram. You can sell up to 30,000 rands worth of work on Instagram, but the smaller galleries who were catering to that market now no longer had artists, because the artists didn't have to share the commissions. They were doing their shows online. They were doing all these things. So a lot of our entry level, like our smaller galleries, closed during that time. So it's the cause and effect of these things. That's what was so fascinating to me.
It is fascinating. In South Africa, there's a limit to how much you can sell through Instagram. Is that a thing? I didn't even know that was a thing.
No, not a limit in the sense that, okay, you can't sell beyond this, but, statistically, that's by kind of the level of buyer. If you're going to go beyond a certain threshold, people are going to say, who is this person that I'm buying from? You're not going to spend, $10,000 or however much on Instagram, and it may be fake. That's the other issue that we're dealing with in this day and age about, AI and all these things, like what's real, what's not real. I didn't really delve into this in terms of NFTs, but NFTs have died a slow death.
Haven't they?
Or very fast death, actually. It was there.
Yeah.
It was there, and it was so important, and it was prominent, and all the artists were like, this is the future, and then the next thing you don't hear anything about it. And that's a good thing, I think. But it's interesting. It's just interesting how it enables artists to become a part of that world and what their reasons are for participating in the arts, whether it is to sell, because you can project also any persona you want on Instagram. And I think what also it does is that it brings you closer, in the old days, saying the old days, let's say pre-COVID days, going to an exhibition opening was the place where you created your personal connections. I'm not in New York in the States that much to be seeing what happens at openings, but I can tell you in Johannesburg, very few people are going to evening openings. All the openings are on a Saturday, and in between you really get people coming into the galleries. So it's changed so much. People are spending most of their time at home. You're making all your personal connections through your Instagram, through whatever you're doing on your phone, and that's become this really important tool where people find people and get invested in people. Where in the old days, you would go to a show and be meeting people and then going for drinks with them, and then next thing you're on their show or you're showing in their gallery, and the strategies have just changed completely.
But doesn't Instagram drive you nuts?
It does.
The algorithm changes every nanosecond, I swear to God. And, when at the beginning of COVID even, you could gain traction, and now I have the same issue with gaining audience for the pod, right? Like, I want more people to listen to it. I want more people to find it because I feel like I'm doing pretty good service for the art world. But like, it's impossible. And I refuse to pay them for, makes me so mad. But it was a game changer for sure. It is a game changer for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. I mean, it's so creepy, Instagram, to me. Also, because of this issue, and it's becoming a bigger issue for me, is like, what is real in the world? And the world is so crazy that the things that are happening seem fake. And then you see things that are fake, and you're like, but this could be real because it's so crazy out there. But it's so competitive, and it's so overloaded. And, but without it, you don't exist.
Right.
So it is insane, the level of time that we're spending on putting ourselves out there online. And it's really the only way, because it's a very select audience that deal with mailers. It's a very select audience that go out and do things, It's the majority of people who find their news and what's happening, even in the art world, and what's new on the artist Instagram or whatever, like what's going on with that artist. You're finding your news on Instagram. Even if an artist has a residency, where would you, or if you want to find out if your artist is moving up in the world, where are you going to find that out? You're going to find it out on Instagram. You're going to go check out what they're doing. And it's insane, but I think you have to have some kind of physical presence, whether it be at an art fair or wherever it is, in order for you to now distinguish yourself again from people who are just producing or promoting to the masses, which is, the people of Instagram, in my opinion.
Wouldn't it be nice if there was some publicly held trust nonprofit that enabled, you'd have to get everybody to shift over, right? Which Blue Sky tried to do, but isn't really succeeding, I think. I'm not sure. Or Threads or whatever, which is still owned by Meta. But one where you actually see the people you want to see, not this line of stuff. I'm like, every 10th thing is somebody I know, everything in between. I'm like, what the heck is this? Oh, it's so irritating.
Well, I can tell you about that. I've read this fascinating article about how the users of social media platforms are basically working for free for marketing. That's basically what we're doing. We're testing product, we're testing. We're basically those rats that get tested in the labs to see if products work. That's what we're all doing. But as a sideline, we get to push our own agenda to a very select few. But ultimately, it's just research for marketing. That's what we're doing on Instagram.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because It's free, but nothing is free. Nothing's free.
Amé!
Sorry, it's going very dark.
But I think it's important I think we all sort of in our heart and our dark soul understand all of this stuff about it. But as it affects artists and their ability to get themselves out there, I don't know.
It's useful. No, it's useful. And I think that, it does enable people to participate in an arena that without it would still be very dominated by rules and, who is the next big artist. Now we can all make, in a way, it, even for myself, putting out what I produce on Instagram just to whoever is there, it's really for myself, a visual journal, but it's a good place to have output. And I think whenever we make whatever we do in life, you can't just do it for yourself. You have to do it in a way for others, because otherwise, where's the meaning of what we do? And, in the positive realm of the digital and Instagram, we're sharing our lives with people. We're sharing what we do. We may or may not be inspiring other people to say, if they can do it, I can do it. And giving people a voice, I guess, with all the bad aside, it's giving people, with all the tools that we have today, you're able to publish your content, you're able to publish your thoughts, you're able to publish so much. And it's, in the same way where the dark side is very, very dark, but it's so positive in so many ways, to give people a platform and to give them the confidence, because I can say even for myself, like my Instagram's given me over the years the confidence to keep producing, I took a bit of a hiatus from producing work for 10 years because, my art teachers didn't think I was good enough to be like a, top artist student or whatever, which is totally fine. But then, then having an output, having somewhere for it to go, to me meant a lot, in the sense that, I don't really care that much about the like recognition, but it's just for me a place to say, I'm making progression. I can see the difference between drawing X and drawing Y, because with everything being digital, where do we keep it? How do we keep it together? And it is a way for us to be revisiting, how we've progressed. I love that.
Yeah, no, it is totally useful for keeping track of one's life. I went back and dug through to figure out, when our last pet passed away and we got the new one. Like, I couldn't remember, and there it was, right in there. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. But it's, or maybe we've become dependent on it because of it. But yeah, it's fascinating. But it is true. And back to the podcast, like it's essentially free for anyone to create something. I mean, it's not free because you have to pay for the subscriptions for all the programs and stuff, but I'm not paying to load everything up into Apple, Spotify, etc. It's kind of egalitarian in a really wonderful way. Although in the Podverse, there's like the big boys, and then there's all of us amateurs over here in another corner, and we'll never get there, to the not Joe Rogan or whoever. Don't want to be him, but
I think no, totally. But I think that's shouldn't feel bad about that from my perspective, because I think that there's so much about podcasts that are big time that people may not relate to. Where smaller podcasts like our platforms, I can't tell you how many people have come to me saying, not necessarily about the content, just like opening their minds to appreciating other professions, but also saying, or even like the people we work with at David Krut, when we say the next person's going to take over the podcast, they're like, I can't do it. I don't like my voice. And I'm like, just listen to this thing and you'll see. It's like so fun. And they listen to it and it's so relatable to them at their level. We're not pretending to be speaking to the William Kentridges of the world or this or that or whatever, but they're levels of people that can engage at a certain level that will help them get to the next level and the next level. And it's the same with galleries as well. Like everything that David does to be promoting, and that we do at David Krut to be promoting artists' career and growing them, it needs to go somewhere else. But you need to have that foundation. You need to have, a place where you, and one thing that I love about your podcast is that so many people that you've interviewed, I've met them. And I'm like Ben Levy, and obviously I know Jill, she's a good friend. And it's like, wow, these are people in real life. It's not some random celebrity or some, do you know what I'm saying? And there is so much value and so much beauty in that we should keep going. We should carry on doing our little bit for the arts community. And, share our thoughts, because, even you who has so much experience in art fairs and who has all this very intricate network of practitioners, extremely valuable for people to be sharing in those connections in this way.
Yeah, I think that's right. How do you help the people in the workshop who are going to take over the next podcast episode? How do you convince them that they have A, valid things to say, and B, get over their nervous? I can't tell you how many people have ducked me for interviews who are just, I can't, and they just kind of can't, it's so weird to me because I'm so used to seeing myself on screen now. Like it doesn't faze me in the least. But like I have a couple of people that I've been trying to get to talk to me since day one, and they have ducked me for 4 years. Like, I don't know how to. I mean, if I can't get you comfortable on camera, I don't know who could, frankly.
Totally. No, you're like, it's basically having tea at mom's house, right? Often for us, it's throwing people into the deep end. But also, maybe on our side, doing a little preparation, doing a bit of research, because in anything in life, I think when we have a bit of confidence, things become easier. So basically saying, okay, you're going to be interviewing this artist. How are you going to do it? So they research the artist, they go meet them in the workshop, they look at their work. So sometimes we would have people interview artists who they're interested in or who they've expressed interest in their work, saying, oh, you know what I love about this artist's work is this thing and that thing. And they're like, you know what, you should be interviewing them. Or if they have a similar practice, like if you're a photographer and they're working with photography as their base, there's some interesting things that can go out there. But I think, ultimately creating maybe a sense of confidence in people and saying, like, it's so funny because what you're saying, I relate so much to that. When we started the podcast, even with my best friend, I was like, no, I can't. It was just the two of us in a room and we had microphones and I was so nervous and it would be so tough. I would like say, no, let's not do it today. Let's do it next week, because you don't realize that it's just a conversation. It's just you expressing your thoughts. But in our side, doing a little bit of preparation, I think gives that confidence. And with our podcast, we also really prepared. We had some questions, but we would go so crazy, like getting so excited about people's work and what they did and really letting them do the talking. That helped us a lot. And sometimes with staff taking over the podcast, for us, I would say to them, listen and respond to what let them do the talking. And you can respond to things that relate to you, because I think people like listening to that as well. But I think always a bit of a confidence builder. And I think the nice icebreaker with your podcast as well, like talking a little bit before, makes people feel very relaxed. So they mustn't be scared to come and have a chat. Hear ye, people.
Because
it's fun.
You know who you are. I'm going to get you. It's just amazing to me because, I think everybody by nature wants to be heard and to be contributing valuable information and in our corner of the world, sharing, collaborating and all that stuff. It's fascinating to me how people get so freaked out.
Well, they should just think about it as a Zoom meeting.
Right.
Everybody, I think, I don't know when you invited these people, but if it was post-COVID, wow.
I'm shocked.
I know. Because we're all doing video calls. You could always start with a little icebreaker at the beginning to make them feel more comfortable. Yeah. A little game or something.
Right. I've had hour-long conversations, not recording, and then come back, weeks later, just because they're like, I don't know, I have anything to say. And I'm like, let's just sit and talk for a minute. And they finally warm up, but I can't even get these people to talk to me, period.
To log in.
Yeah,
Come
exactly.
on, log in, press. And I must say it's like just your intro made me feel very special. Like, are you ready? You're going to be great. Rolling out the red carpet for you. And I was like, yeah, that's what I need. That's what I deserve. I'm joking. But it is so lovely and it makes you feel like you're entering a game. And so, as you say, I don't know who wouldn't want to be on this podcast because it's so wonderful.
Thank you.
And lovely to chat.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before I let you go, I wanted to get your summation about the Brooklyn Fair because it was, from my end, such a triumph. And I'm always curious to talk to the people who were there as exhibitors and just sort of get their feedback about what it was like from their end,
Yeah. Well, I've said to you, I'm a huge fan of the fair. I know it was the first round of the Brooklyn Art Fair, but since we started talking about the fair, you guys made us feel so excited and were, there for us when we had a question. I've done a few fairs and I just loved working at your fair. Everybody was so welcoming. Everybody was so lovely and supportive in general. And we spoke to Luther about a year or two prior to the fair opening, and he was like, this is going to be the best fair ever. And it was. It was the best fair ever for us. There was really something for everybody. There was so much interest in so many different works, which I felt so refreshing. And it was really like friends coming together, even people who had never met. We were all just nerding out about print. I loved the Wally Dion. I told Joel that was my favorite work at the fair.
Nice.
Sorry, David Krut artist, but I see your work all the time. I love it too. But that Wally Dion, it was so beautiful. And that was like a quilt in print. So there was like so many interesting things and people thinking out of the box about print. I just love that. The community was incredible. I think it was lovely, and I literally can't wait for us to hopefully be doing it next year.
Oh, that'd be great.
Again.
Yeah. It's funny because Luther called. We used to talk to each other every morning, not every morning, but most mornings about 7:30 in the morning before he got on the subway or whatever, got his kids to school. And one morning he called. He's like, "David Krut's in." I'm like, "What?" Like, I didn't even ask you guys because I assumed you would say no. And he had the foresight to know these people are, they are kindred spirits and we should ask them. I mean, it would never have dawned on me to ask you. I was so grateful he was.
Well, thanks,
Yeah.
I guess.
Well,
No,
it is a compliment because I assumed you would be at the IFPDA fair, the big boy fair, and it was, you guys were a great catch for us.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you. But for real, I mean, I think it's this area of connectivity. I think that's so important to all of us that we have with Luther and with you and with the fair. As I said, we visited the Powerhouse Arts when it was still kind of being renovated a few years ago. And, it felt right. It feels right to be there. And I think that's, we kind of loved, it was like being on the shop floor. I mean, it literally is being on the shop floor because there's studios there, but that's where we love to be. David and I both, I think, like to get our hands dirty in the sense that we want to talk about the real things. We're not that interested in the glitz and glamour, which is maybe why, the IFPDA is an amazing fair. There were beautiful works there. But we felt so at home at the Brooklyn Fine Art Print Fair. And it's a natural fit, his connectivity with Luther over the years and with yourself. And it was a perfect fit for us. So please ask us again.
You will be asked again. Don't you worry.
Don't forget about us.
Yeah, yes. I think you got, there's a lot of things to sort out about how can we expand the number of exhibitors? What do we do with the self-representing artists? I feel like we have to vary who's there. We can't have the same 28 people back, so how do you manage that and the schools? And so there's a lot to sort out, but I think everybody at Powerhouse, from what I have heard and talked to, like everybody was just thrilled with the first round. And, they have another fair going this weekend as we speak, which is about arts from the global majority. So places that don't show in New York very often. And they've billed it as a dry run for a bigger iteration next time around. And I mean, they're committed to talk about being a connector. Like they are committed to doing as much as they can for as many people as they can in a thoughtful and sincere way. Like I can't say enough good things about them and their organization.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Yeah. That sounds incredible. Yeah. But, I think variation also is so important, showing people, making it easier for them to see the world in one place is so lovely. So I think it's great seeing different things at a fair, as well, seeing the unexpected. And I think maybe also that's one of the things that was so lovely about the fair is that we didn't know what to expect. And it was such a beautiful surprise, like how much people, we spoke to people who were like, we can't wait to get there. We can't wait to come back, like literally the next day. And they had so much fun. And that was such a surprise. So good luck with, now you already know it's quite enjoyable. So good luck with, creating the suspense for that as well. But you could do that, through different exhibitors and, bringing more people in. It was great seeing everybody and meeting some of David's friends, Tom Huck. What a fan. I'm such a fan of him.
Oh, you hadn't met Huck before? Oh, wow.
Never met him before. And his works are insane on so many levels. Also such a good friend of David's. And it was lovely meeting David's friends from when he used to visit New York, all the time.
That's so, yeah. Huck is forever grateful to David for giving him his first New York show. I think it is, if I recall correctly. Big deal. Yeah.
Well, asking about the New York space, it was a lot of firsts for a lot of artists. I mean, David was even one of the first people to show Ala Natsui's work in the States. Not the first, but, he's shown some major artists there. And that is it shows David's foresight about, artists that people should be looking at, or that he finds interesting, not even what people should be looking at, just, what's interesting to us. And, I also didn't thank you earlier, but for saying that our shows are very interesting and so great, because the team do a lot to make it interesting in the sense of contributing to the conversation about South African printmaking and printmaking as a whole, to be one of the guys, one of the guys showing works that are incredible. And, to our printers as well, that were trained by Jill, and Jill was working with Phil. And there's such a beautiful global network of people that have come through our studio that have trained our printers, and it's, world-class works coming out. And it's just so incredible to be showing that in America and everywhere. And our artists really deserve that exposure. So that space is important to us. So people must come visit us in New York.
Yeah, I don't remember when it was. It was before I left the museum, which was 2017. So before then, you guys had a show up of Diane Victor's, there were a couple of prints, but there was the smoke drawings of the lost people, the people in between the system. And I saw them, and I immediately called my colleague who had to say yay, nay before I could put a red dot on something. And so I was like, you have to get down here because the red dots are flying. And I need you to come and look immediately. And she didn't come until like Sunday morning, and I was freaking out because I was like, we're not going to get one of those. But then we were able to acquire 2 of them. So. But they were so beautiful, in that wall full of those smoke drawings. I mean, it was stunning. It was just so heartbreaking and meaningful. And I was bowled over by those.
Totally. And such a simple yet complex technique, the smoke drawings, they are so intuitive. And, how does she not burn those papers while she's doing it? And she gets the variation of the mark in different tonalities, but how is this paper not going up in flames? Pretty much. And yeah, it's incredible. And it's lovely. It's also lovely to look at challenging content that's presented in such a beautiful way, in such a soft way and relatable way, because we find that also, I don't know, like people, they sometimes can be scared of talking about difficult things, or the translation of that conversation can often come across too harsh. And I think Diane Victor has such a way of presenting things, and she's quite a soft person, or I find her very gentle in many ways, even though she's terrifying and hardcore at the same time. She is so incredibly humble and soft in her way, and it reflects so beautifully in her work. And I adore her work. Like I live with it. Some people can't live with it, but I can really appreciate everything of herself that she puts into her work. So those are just exquisite. And I'm so glad you got to see that, and that you got to buy some.
We did. Yeah, they were big hits in our study room. I pull them out for classes all the time and test the kids on, how do you think she made these? And we pull up the video of her doing it, and they were like, what?
Did they try?
I don't know. I haven't talked to anybody who actually has tried that. That's a good question. Huh. If you've tried a smoke drawing, people, let me know.
You see, and the level of detail that she's able to achieve with those, I would want to see people try and see, you have to be a master draftsman to be able to achieve that. And they look so simple.
But how do you control smoke? I mean, honest to God. Yeah, those are incredible.
Totally.
I'm big fan.
Incredible works.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Anyway. All right. Well, unless there's something you would like to tell us about what's coming up in the immediate future, we should wrap it up.
Yeah, we've covered so much. And it's just so lovely talking about art with you. And I'm just so grateful to have had this chat with you. And as you say, to have met a kindred spirit in podcasting, because it's really, I'm inspired to start up our podcast. And yeah, just want to keep it going. Keep it going.
Yeah. I think it's a powerful platform for people like you and me to spread the love. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for talking to me today, Amé. It's been really lovely, and I so appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me. Love chatting to you, Anne.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Platemark with my guest, Amé Bell. She's lovely. I love talking to her about all the stuff, and I love getting the perspective from a country that seems so far away. I feel like there's a serious shared commitment to prints and printmaking, both within the workshop and also, across the country, which is pretty cool. One of these days I want to get down there and check it out. All right, well, a thank you to Amé for being a wonderful guest. Thanks, Amé. And also, as usual, one to my team, Dan Fury of Extension Audio, for being my sound guy. Thanks, Dan. And one to Michael Diamond for the use of his original music. Thanks, Uncle Michael. And also to Skip Barnhart and Lee Turner, who sent sounds from their studios that make up the top and bottom of each episode. Thanks, guys. Images that we talked about are over in the show notes at platemarkpodcast.com. There's other stuff over there. You know what to do. Hit the support and donate button. Leave us a review. Tell me who you'd like me to talk to next. There's all kinds of things you can do. I think that's it. We'll see you next time.